Hello everyone, it's Miss Irene again. I'm here today with a new video. This time we are talking about the MMS presentation. Yes, that's right, you'll be doing another MMS speech in my class. Last year, if you were in Miss Dominica's class, you did an MMS speech about different countries. We'll be covering a different topic in my class. But before I explain what our MMS topic will be, let's take a look at this lesson's goals and materials. So for today's lesson in this video, we're going to do two main goals. Number one is review the MMS structure, and number two is learn how to apply the MMS to this semester's topic. Now, you're going to need a few materials. First of all, there should be an attachment that is available to you called the 2020 MMS PowerPoint Guide, and then it says in parentheses for notes. This is pretty much an outline of a lot of the main things we're going to be talking about in this video. So you can follow the outline and write in notes where the notes are appropriate. Next, you will need pens, pencils, highlighters, etc. Now, to understand how to take notes for this video, I want you to understand first that this PPT will be available in its entirety as a PPT on my website after we begin class for real at school. So that means you don't need to take notes on every single word that you see on the screen before you. You will be able to have access to this PowerPoint. Rather, you should take notes on things that I say or mention that might not be directly written on the PPT. So that's why I want you to use the note guideline that I provided as an attachment. So the MMS speech is around 3 minutes long, and the due date for your speech, at least right now, is in May. Since the schedule is still changing and the virus situation is unpredictable, I cannot give you an exact due date. However, I will try to give you adequate time to prepare, since I know the MMS is something that students spend a lot of time on. Before you do the speech, you will also have the chance to check your outline with me. I highly recommend that you do this. You will have one 100-minute class period to work on your speech. This is the only class period I will give you to do research on your speech or write your speech in my class. During that time, you can ask me questions. You can use the internet to do research if you have a research device. You can just work on your outline, etc. Do not waste this time period. If you fool around during the one day I give you to work on the MMS in class, I will have no pity if you lose points on your outline. We will grade and assess sample MMS outlines, which means that you will get a chance to look at common mistakes that students make and the amount of points I typically take for them. If you pay attention to this PPT, the instruction packet, my sample speech, and the corrections that will be going in your speech packet, which you will receive later, your outline's content should be pretty solid. So why do we do the MMS? These are reasons why I teach the MMS. So trust me, I'm not fond of grading the MMS. It's a lot of work on your part. It's also a lot of work on my part. However, I do it every single year because I like watching my students learn from it and improve from it. And it's a persuasive speech. So it's very tightly structured because you only have 3 minutes. I want to teach students how to speak persuasively. Persuading people is one of the most important skills that you can learn when it comes to communication. Think of all the situations in which you need to persuade someone, such as in a job interview, in a college admission essay, maybe one day you'll work in advertising that uses MMS as well. Also, it's to teach students how to properly do research. Yes, I'm talking about those MLA citations that you love so much. We're going to review the MLA citations. We're actually going to learn how to do footnotes this year, not in this PowerPoint, however. But research is very important. If you go to university, you might be expected to do research papers. So it's important to learn how to cite them and how to properly research. Another thing is that the MMS really does improve my students' presentation skills. A lot of my students are very proud of their MMS speech in the spring and their informative speech in the fall. Now, when I'm talking about presentation skills, I don't mean holding up a piece of paper and just reading from it. That's not what you will be doing. I'll explain later what I mean when I expect you to actually present your speech and not just speak your speech. Before we review the structure of the MMS speech and get into all the details, I want to say, do not panic. Students like to complain a lot about the MMS, but the truth is, at the end of every year, my students always say the speeches are some of the most useful activities they did in class. Also, students worry a lot about the grade. I understand that you're day one students and anything under 100% is unacceptable, but there isn't any reason to stress about my grading system for the speeches. I know exactly what I want, and I will tell you exactly how to get the maximum amount of points. If you follow my instructions and understand what I'm looking for, you will be fine. A negative mindset at the beginning is setting yourself up for failure. So I'm telling you that all of you can do well on the MMS. Let me teach you now how. Second of all, get a snack or drink before starting this video. I'm going to warn you, it's not a short video, so it would be nice to have a snack or drink on hand. I'm not around to watch you watch the video, so I'm not peeking over your shoulders. Just relax and settle in. Let's begin. Since I've been teaching the MMS for a couple of years, I've become familiar with the qualities that make students either struggle or succeed. First, let's talk about some common mistakes. The most common one is procrastination. That means not doing the speech until the very last minute. I have had students in the past who do their entire speech, including all the research, all the writing, all the practicing, the same week it's due. Let me just say that frankly, it is always very easy to tell who these students are because their speeches tend not to be very good, and that reflects in their grades. Next, please try to get your outline checked by me. I will set a certain week before the speech due date when I will accept outlines to look at. It's a very busy week for me since I'm checking hundreds of outlines and students are asking a lot of questions, so please be patient with me that week. However, if you get your outline back, I will usually tell you what you need to correct on your speech, which is extremely useful for the content grade. Number 3, not paying attention to instructions. I give a lot of very specific instructions. I expect them to be followed. For example, one of my instructions is you have to have your name and your student number on your outline. Sounds very easy, right? Well, every year I have students who are missing their name or their student number on their outline. I don't know why, but it happens every single year. Follow the instructions. The instructions are worth points. None of the points I take from you should be a surprise. You will have abundant resources, including this PPT, to tell you what I want on the MMS. Next, practicing your speech last minute. So let's say you finished your outline and now you need to practice it. You should not be practicing it for the first time the night before your speech is due. While you will have a flashcard, which I will talk about later, you will still need to memorize some parts of your speech for full credit. I will go over speech memorization tips later, but it is very difficult to cram a full 3-minute speech into your head the night before you need to deliver that speech. It's very difficult to do perfectly. So trust me, you can definitely deliver a perfect speech and still sleep the night before. Now let's talk about how students succeed at the MMS. First, there is a very strong relationship with how prepared a student is and how well he or she does on the speech. Listen, guys, I get it. There's so much work at day one, and it's difficult getting everything done on time. The MMS cannot be finished all in one night, but you can do it piece by piece. For example, organize your research one week, write your introduction the next week, then your need stage the next week, etc., etc. By breaking up the MMS into sizable pieces, it's much easier and less overwhelming. On the other hand, I've had the rare student who did the entire outline as quickly as possible in like 1 week after they got all the instructions, after they got their topic. Then they got their outline checked by me. They followed my corrections. And then you know what? That student just relaxed for pretty much the rest of the semester until the day of their MMS because they had so much time to practice and because they did the majority of the work so far in advance. Yes, it's possible, but only if you prepare. Next, get your outline checked by me. This is extremely important. But it's not just about having the outline checked by me. It's about following my instructions for the corrections. If I wrote that your memorable close wasn't memorable, then I better see that you changed it by the time you do your speech. Finally, students who do well understand the instructions thoroughly. There is a reason I'm putting this PowerPoint online before we've even met in class, and I give you so many handouts about the MMS. The MMS has a lot of instructions, but I give you these specific instructions so that you can achieve the maximum amount of points. You're welcome. Before I dive into the details of the MMS, I want to make one thing very clear. English fluency does not guarantee success on the MMS. Why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is because my students are very self-conscious about their English speaking skills. There are some of you who are really fluent at English, but that does not mean that you will get 100% on the MMS if you are lazy and not prepared. The MMS is kind of like the great equalizer in terms of my class's assignments, because if you're prepared, if you make an effort to ask questions, if you practice, you can do really, really well. It is probably the activity in my class that you have the most time to do and that you have the most opportunity to do in advance and well on. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the MMS itself. We're going to talk specifically about the structure of the MMS for this semester and how to write according to that structure. So get out your pens, pencils, highlighters if you need them. It's time to take notes. If you had Miss Dominica's class last year, you probably know already that MMS stands for Monroe's Motivated Sequence. So who was Monroe? He's this guy to the right over here. His name is Alan Monroe, and he was a professor at Purdue University, and he developed MMS in the 1930s. MMS is basically a persuasive organizational pattern. If you follow the pattern, you can communicate your ideas more persuasively. If you see commercials or look at advertisements, you can often find an MMS similar structure. So it's not just something that is used in the classroom, it has actual practical usage. So here are the 5 steps in order of the MMS. Attention, need, satisfaction, visualization, conclusion. Individually, each of the steps has a different function. Let's review them. The attention step. This captures the audience's attention. Need. This shows that there is a problem. Satisfaction. This shows the audience how to solve that problem. Visualization. This paints a picture in your audience's head of what will happen if the solution occurs or if the problem is allowed to remain. Lastly, conclusion. This is where you tell your audience how they can take action. So what exactly are we going to be writing about for our MMS this semester? Last year, my students did actual products and companies. I'm actually doing something brand new this year, so I'm very excited about it, and I hope you are too. This year, rather than companies and their products, we're doing jobs. So you are persuading your audience to become a or an topic that you pick. Let me make sure that all of you understand what you're persuading your audience to do and what you are not persuading them to do. You are persuading your audience to become a job by explaining how that job is important to its field or society in general. You are not persuading your audience to become a job, so that's your topic, by telling them that the job is fun or interesting. I picked over 300 different jobs, and I picked a lot of fun and interesting ones, so please don't argue that you should become X, Y, or Z because it's fun or interesting. That's a very bland argument. Do not persuade that somebody should become your job because it's easy to do. That's assuming your audience is lazy and is only interested in a job that is easy to do. Don't try to persuade your audience to do this job because it makes a lot of money. Not all jobs that are important make more money than other jobs. So money is not going to motivate everyone in your audience, etc. We can talk about different mistakes later on, but those are the basic issues that students might have if they are writing about what they want their audience to do. So let me show you some examples. On the left, you see a firefighter, right? An okay argument if you receive the topic firefighter is, you should become a firefighter because they save lives. That's adding some kind of value to society. That's showing that this job is important to society, right? A bad argument is, you should become a firefighter because you can look cool and be attractive to women. This is not really showing that your job is important to society. Okay, we're now going to review the steps of the MMS, but we're going to modify it for the topic jobs. So persuading your audience to become a job. Attention stays the same. This still captures the audience's attention. Need still shows that there is a problem, but satisfaction shows the audience how that job, which is your topic, solves that problem. The visualization, you can do one of two things. This paints a picture in your audience's head of what will happen if A, someone does that job, which leads to a positive outcome, or B, there aren't enough people who do that job. This leads to a negative outcome. For the conclusion, tell your audience how they can take action to become that job or get that job. Now we're going to apply the steps of MMS to the job firefighter. So, persuading your audience to become a firefighter. Attention! Fire! Fire! Everyone panics when they hear these words. Not firefighters, though. Need. Every year, hundreds of fires cause millions of dollars worth of damage and cost innocent lives. Satisfaction. With their specialized gear and intense training, firefighters are the best people adapted to fight fires. Visualization. So remember there's two. There's a positive and there's a negative one. You're only going to have to do one for the MMS. Positive outcome. You're a firefighter who is called to a house fire. You save an old woman who is forever grateful that you arrived on time when she needed you. So if you do that job, or if someone does that job, then this positive outcome happens. Negative outcome. There aren't enough firefighters in town. A careless idiot throws a cigarette on the sidewalk near an elementary school. As a result, a dozen children are badly burned by the fire that starts, and some of those poor kids will be scarred for life. So, as a result of there not being enough of your topic, the job firefighters, this very negative result has happened. In the conclusion, you need to give the audience some kind of direct action they can take to become a firefighter. You can't just say, become a firefighter now. I mean, how? So you can give them some options, such as contact your neighborhood fire station and ask how you can become a firefighter. Now, this works for firefighters because fire stations tend to be friendly and they tend to have staff or receptionists where they can talk to people if you call them. This one method will not work for all different jobs in the jobs that you might pick. For example, if you had the job actress, you wouldn't just say, call up Angelina Jolie and ask her how to become an actress. That's very difficult to do, right? So the method that you want your audience to do depends on the topic you will have. By now, I'm sure you want a break from my lecturing, so let's do a quick activity. I want you to get out a piece of notebook paper, pause my video, and watch this video. The link is listed here on this PPT, and there will also be a link in the description of this YouTube video. So watch this video called Diving for Evidence and listen to the man talk about his job. First of all, what is his job? His job is really special and rare, but it's also extremely important. What I want you to do is listen to him and write down, if you had this job as your topic, what would be the need and what would be the satisfaction? So I will not directly check this activity in class, but we will talk briefly about this video. So I expect you to have at least watched this video. So for right now, you can hit the pause button and watch someone who is not me talking. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video. First of all, what was the man's very interesting, very unique job? His job was underwater criminal investigator. So next, what is the need? So what is the problem that he's solving? The need is, it's easy to get rid of evidence in water. He mentioned that directly, right? Now, how does his job solve this problem? So what's the satisfaction? Don't write underwater criminal investigators can find murder weapons. Why? That's too vague. It doesn't exactly show how they find murder weapons or what it is that's so special about them that lets them do that. It's much better to write, underwater criminal investigators specialize in diving into dark, deep, cold water to recover bodies, vehicles, and evidence related to crimes. That satisfaction gives you a much more thorough idea of how that job uniquely satisfies the need. Now we're going to talk about the specifics of the attention step. Here's a breakdown of the attention step. It's divided into 6 parts. They are attention getter, purpose statement or thesis, significance of topic, credibility, preview statement, and lastly, transition. We are going to do transitions in class because I have a very specific way that I want you guys to do transitions. Also, I have an activity for you guys in class in order for you guys to learn the perfect transition. So we're going to learn A through E now, but we're not going to touch F until later. An attention getter is the first part of your speech, so it should immediately grab your audience's attention. If you have trouble doing that, here are a couple of different techniques you can use. Relating to the audience. Mention a common experience, feeling, or thought that you're sure the majority of your audience have had. Next, showing the importance of the topic. Make a statement that shows how important your job is. Next, using quotations. Maybe there is an interesting or striking quote about your job. Next, using anecdotes. Anecdotes are personal stories, and since jobs are done by people, it shouldn't be hard to find one. Next, making startling statements. Tell the audience a surprising fact or figure. Next, telling dramatic stories. Put the audience in the middle of a story that gets their heart racing. Finally, asking rhetorical questions. These are not questions that you expect to be answered. These are just questions that you ask to the audience to get their minds to think about your topic. Let's try those techniques with the topic firefighters. Relating to the audience. You've all seen a fire truck zooming by on the street. This is a common experience you can be sure your audience has had, so they can all immediately relate to what you're talking about. Showing the importance of the topic. Without firefighters, fires destroy lives. Look at that. You're immediately communicating how important firefighters are. Quotations. All people are created equal, but a few become firefighters. So this is a random quote I found on the internet. When you use quotes, make sure to cite them so that you can show where you got the quote from. Anecdotes. He was my hero, a true angel, said Katarina Turner after a firefighter rescued her from the collapsing Twin Towers on 9/11. I made this quote up, but if this was a real quote that I found on the internet, again, I would have to cite it. This is a quote that is also a personal story. So this is an anecdote that is also a quote. All right, here are the other techniques. Making startling statements. In just 2 minutes, a fire can become life-threatening. In 5 minutes, a residence can be engulfed in flames. This is a fact that should sound surprising to most of the audience, but it's also a specific fact with numbers, so it needs to be cited. Telling dramatic stories. You wake up at midnight to the smell of smoke coming from under your door. A fire is raging in your house. So in this situation, you're planting your audience in an imaginary emergency to make them feel a sense of urgency. Asking rhetorical questions. When the smoke alarm goes off and your home is about to catch on fire, who are the people you want first at your door? Obviously, your audience will not answer this question since it's rhetorical. No one is going to raise their hand and say, I want my mom to answer the door. Rhetorical questions are just meant to get your audience thinking in the direction you want them to think in. Now we're going to go over the thesis. The thesis is one of the most important parts of your speech because it is a window into your entire speech. From just your thesis, I should be able to tell what is your central argument and how you will prove it. Your topic must be in the thesis. I will take 1 point off if it is not. Also, your thesis must match the content of your speech. This is a very common issue that students have. I'm going to show you some examples of how not to write a thesis. Everyone should consider becoming a firefighter. Is this an argument? Yeah, it is, but it's too basic to be a good thesis because you're missing the because. Why should everyone consider becoming a firefighter? So everyone in the class will have the same basic argument about you should become this, you should become that. But how you argue it is what makes your speech unique from the others. And this thesis doesn't show that. This thesis would be -2 points because it's missing 2 important elements. Okay, we have a better thesis now. Everyone should consider becoming a firefighter because fires are deadly. The because states the problem that occurs in the need stage, and that's why this thesis is better. You have a because now. However, you might notice it still doesn't mention how being a firefighter solves that problem. So this would still be -1 out of 5 points. This is a perfect thesis. Everyone should consider becoming a firefighter because fires are deadly and firefighters are the ones best trained to save you from fires. This will get you the full 5 points for the thesis. Let me now explain why. Why is this a perfect thesis? Look at the yellow part. Everyone should consider becoming a firefighter. This is the assertion. This is what you are persuading the audience to do. This will be the part that sounds similar in everyone's outline. However, where things start to differ is the blue. Look at the blue part. Fires are deadly. This matches the need step later in your speech, where you talk about how many people are killed a year by fires. Now look at the green part. Firefighters are the ones best trained to save you from fires. That's what you are proving in your satisfaction step. Now you know what I meant when I said the thesis must match the content in the speech. To make things extra easy for my students, I made a formula for you to help you remember how to write your thesis. And that is, thesis equals assertion, because, need plus satisfaction. Now, a lot of my students write their thesis, but then their need or satisfaction step evolves as they do more research. That's completely natural. It happens all the time. But that's also why you should always double check to make sure that your thesis matches the rest of your speech. Let's take a look at an issue with this thesis. Everyone should consider becoming a firefighter because fires are deadly and firefighters are the ones best trained to save you from fires. This is the exact same thesis we had before, but now it's minus 1 point. Why? Because in the need step, rather than talking about how deadly fires are, this student wrote about how many fires happen a year. Listen, just because a fire occurs doesn't mean that it's deadly, right? So this student got -1 because she didn't appropriately match a part of her thesis to the content later in her speech. So always match the content with the thesis. Don't forget. We're moving on now to the credibility statement. Okay, listen up. This is different from last year. So last year, the credibility statement showed that you, the speaker, are credible. This year, you are showing that your topic is credible. That means that you are showing that your job is a credible job. So why has Miss Irene changed this? Because you want to show that the job you picked is a serious career commitment and not just a hobby. You can show how seriously your audience needs to take your job by mentioning at least 2 of the following for full credit. What type of training does that job require? What education, certificates, or licenses are needed to fulfill that job? What are some technical skills needed to perform your job? What type of positive character qualities are required for your job? And what type of sacrifices are involved in your job? All of these will make your audience believe that your job is a credible career. Let's look at some examples. Example number 1, firefighter. Becoming a firefighter requires months of extensive training at a fire academy and unshakable courage. Why is this a good credibility statement? Well, it has 2 things. Number 1, let me highlight this. It has mention of the type of training that's needed. Not everyone will go through this training. Number 2, it mentions a very positive character quality needed to do this job. Example 2, professional photographer. What makes a person who does photography as a hobby different from someone who does it professionally? Here's my credibility statement to show you that. Excellent professional photographers know how to get the best shot because they know how to operate the latest camera technology and are extremely patient, sometimes waiting hours for a perfect photo. So now I'm showing you a type of technical expertise this job needs that not all photographers who are hobbyists have. And that's right over here, this part. Highlighting it in yellow just so you can see. So it's the part that mentions the latest camera technology. Also, I'm showing you a positive character quality, which is being patient, because as a professional photographer, you have to be extremely patient. That's this part here. Now we're moving on to the preview statement. The preview statement is actually quite easy because all you have to do is say this. In this speech, I will talk about your main idea in the need step, your main idea in your satisfaction step, and your main idea in your visualization step. Don't go into too much detail about each of the main ideas. You want to keep it short and sweet. Details are for the body paragraphs that come later. We're finally at the need step. The purpose of the need step is to show that there is a problem and to prove that it exists. When you're thinking about the need step, try thinking about the following. Why is your job necessary in the world? What problem does your job specifically solve? What evidence shows that the problem is serious? So let's use an example and think about how to come up with a need. So let's do an example with a lawyer. Actually, just kidding. You will never get a job this broad. They're all different kinds of lawyers. They have different kinds of purposes, different types of specializations. So I will not give you a topic this broad. So you're not going to do a lawyer. One type of lawyer is a criminal defense attorney. In case you don't know what that is, this is the definition. A criminal defense attorney is a lawyer specializing in the defense of individuals and companies charged with criminal activity. So these are the lawyers that are trying to prove that someone is not guilty. What type of problem does a criminal defense attorney deal with? Well, one problem is that innocent people sometimes get blamed for crimes they did not do. Is there support or evidence that this problem really exists? I went online and I found this. Psychologist Saul Kassan has argued that standard interrogation techniques used by police officers can easily cause an innocent person to make false confessions. So this is an expert's opinion that I can use to prove that my problem exists. But because it's such a specific fact, and especially because it's from an expert, do I need to cite this in my MLA citation later? Yes, indeed, I do. All right, now I'm going to show you an example of something that will make me very, very grumpy. So we have the same exact problem that we had before, but this is how this student tried to prove it. Online statistics show that violent crime is increasing in Nairobi, Kenya every year. Okay, let me tell you a few reasons why this is not good evidence. First of all, online statistics, this does not list an expert or an organization I can trust. So that's very vague. Next is, why are you randomly citing information about Nairobi, Kenya? Your audience are not Kenyans, so this is not something that will apply to you. You either have to use statistics in Korea or you have to use global statistics. Lastly, this does not match the problem. This does not show that the problem exists. That's the biggest issue with this type of evidence. You're trying to argue that innocent people are getting blamed for crimes that they did not commit. But what your evidence says is just that crime is increasing. It's not showing that innocent people are getting accused of those crimes. Let's move on to another example, and the example concerns bomb dog trainers. Bomb dog trainers are people who train dogs to sniff out explosives. So the problem would be bombs used by terrorists kill people. It's a very, very simple problem, right? Let's prove that with support or evidence. Improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, these are bombs, caused 3 out of every 5 hostile deaths in the War on Terror in Iraq. So that clearly demonstrates your problem. All right, let's have the same exact problem. Bombs used by terrorists kill people, but let me demonstrate a support or evidence that is clearly off the mark. Dogs are exceptionally good at finding explosives because their sense of smell is 40 times stronger than humans. This is the face I will make if you do something like this. Your support or your evidence is not proving that your problem exists. Make sure that you don't do just random research. Make sure that your research actually helps your argument throughout your speech. So the paragraph structure of the need step and the satisfaction step are actually quite similar. You will start with the introduction. So introduce your problem. Then there is the support or evidence. Prove that your problem exists. Next, relate to the audience. I will show you how to do this in the next slide. Show how this problem can affect the audience. This is your you statement. You need to actually talk directly to the audience using you. And lastly, transition. Connect the paragraph ideas. Let's go back to the criminal defense attorney example. Remember, the problem is innocent people sometimes get blamed for crimes they did not do. Relate this problem to the audience. Say to them, imagine you've been accused of your friend's murder. You're innocent, but the police won't stop pushing you to confess. Wouldn't you feel stressed? Now, that puts the audience in the situation that you've created, the problem you've created. So now they will pay more attention to what you're about to say. We've reached the satisfaction step. This is where you show the audience how to solve that problem that you introduced in the need step. Remember, the solution is your job. Like I mentioned before, the steps for the satisfaction step is similar to those of the need step. Again, you have an introduction, so you introduce your solution to the problem. Support or evidence, prove your solution works. Relate again to the audience, show how the solution can affect the audience. Again, this is a you statement. And lastly, we have another transition, connect paragraph ideas. Back to the criminal defense attorney's problem. Innocent people sometimes get blamed for crimes they did not do. So, don't do this. In the satisfaction, don't just write, criminal defense attorneys can help innocent people. I'll not be happy about this. The reason why is because it's bland. It's vague. There's actually a lot of different people who can help innocent people who are accused of crimes. But why in particular is the criminal defense attorney good at this? You need to explain that. How can you write a better satisfaction? This is better. Criminal defense attorneys can gather evidence that can prove their clients are innocent. This is much more specific to what your topic, the criminal defense attorney, can actually do, and this is something that you can specifically prove through evidence. How do you prove that your satisfaction is realistic and effective? You do that by offering support or evidence. You can offer facts or statistics. Quotes are also really good. For example, you can get a quote from a person who does your job. So in the case of a criminal defense attorney, you can find a quote from an actual real-life criminal defense attorney. You can also find real-life testimonies or reviews from people who have been affected by your job. So in the case of criminal defense attorneys, that would be their clients that they've defended in court. You can also just offer some examples, real cases, real stories about your topic. What's important though is because this is the support and evidence in this step, you need to cite these things. You can't just pull them out of thin air. This is where the research comes in. I'm going to give one example of how to appropriately use a piece of evidence. So remember, the satisfaction is criminal defense attorneys can gather evidence that can prove their clients are innocent. So I'm going to use a real fact. In the past 28 years, criminal defense attorneys working on the Innocence Project have saved the lives of 189 wrongfully imprisoned people by using DNA-based evidence. So, did I prove my satisfaction is effective? Yes, because I proved exactly that real lives were saved by criminal defense attorneys gathering evidence. So it's not just the need step, but also in the satisfaction step, you have a place where you relate to the audience. Remember again that this is your you statement. You are talking directly to the audience. If you've been in prison for 20 long years for a crime you did not commit, imagine the amount of relief it would bring to know that a hardworking criminal defense attorney is still looking for evidence to prove your innocence. Onto the visualization step. This is where you paint a picture using details. The visualization step only has 3 parts. That's the positive or negative outcome, support, and the transition. So to get full credit on the positive or negative outcome part, what you need to do is paint a detailed picture using at least 2 out of the 5 senses. So why am I asking my students to use at least 2 of the 5 senses as details? The reason why is because in the past I just said, I will give you a 5 on the visualization positive or negative outcome if you give me a detailed situation. But just saying that I wanted something detailed was not specific enough for my students. So in order to get that 5 now, you need to show me details that are covering at least 2 out of the 5 senses. Probably the easiest one will be vision, because humans are visual animals and we see things. Let's do an example of a positive outcome using the topic of bomb dog trainer. Remember, a positive outcome is when somebody or the audience is doing the job and there's a positive result. So, imagine you're at an airport. The suspicious-looking man standing in front of you stinks of nervous sweat. A German Shepherd walks by, stops, and suddenly sits right next to his luggage. All of a sudden, security forces come running. The police tackle the man to the floor, where he falls with a tremendous crash. A terrorist plot has just been cut short. Good thing someone trained that bomb dog properly. So let's look at some of the sensory details. So here we have nervous sweat. So you're smelling this man's stinky sweat. That's a sensory detail. You also have things like tremendous crash. What sensory detail is that? That covers hearing. There's visual details all over. For example, rather than saying just a dog, I say a German Shepherd. That gives a stronger visual about what's going on. Security forces come running. That's an action detail that also gives a clear visual. So that's an example of a really good visualization step with a positive outcome. My only criticism of this example I've just written is it's probably too long, but I wrote it a little longer than usual so that you guys could notice all of the sensory details. So I've just provided visualization with a positive outcome. After that, I should provide support. So the support is evidence that your visualization is realistic. So this is a fact that I found on the internet. Bomb dog trainers train dogs to detect explosives all over the airport. Federal Security Director Steve Lawrence says for anything as far as within the aviation sector, within the airport sector, we utilize our canine teams. So this is somebody who is of high ranking in terms of security, right? So you can trust that he is an expert, he knows what he's talking about, and he's proving that your visualization is actually something that might possibly happen. So let's go to a negative outcome visualization. So remember that for a negative outcome, you're proving that something will go badly if there's not enough people who can do the job that is your topic. So this is the one I wrote. Imagine being a soldier at war. You and your allies step into a field with several hidden landmines. One explodes with an earth-shattering boom. Your ally screams in horror as scarlet blood pours from his wound into the sand below his torn-up body. It's a shame your unit didn't have enough well-trained bomb dogs. Now, yes, this is a little bit exaggerated and it's a little bit violent. However, it does get the point across and it does use a lot of sensory details. For example, scarlet blood is surely visual. The screaming, that's a hearing detail, as well as earth-shattering boom. So, because it has at least two sensory details, I would give this kind of negative outcome the 5 out of 5 that it deserves. So again, you have to have support to show that your visualization could actually happen. So I found this fact on the internet, and since it's a fact I found on the internet, yes, I have to cite it. Dogs are still used to find landmines in countries such as Cambodia, where undetected landmines have caused the country to have a high proportion of physically disabled people. Finally, we have reached the last step in MMS, which is the conclusion. So here is where you tell your audience how they can take action. The conclusion has 3 parts. The first part is easy. It's the summary. All you have to do is rephrase your thesis, which you wrote in the introduction, and you have to rephrase it with new words. So remember the formula that I gave you for writing the thesis? Use that formula, but just change the words. Next, there's a call to immediate action. I'll explain how to do this in the next slide. And then the last thing I will teach you about the conclusion is how to make a memorable close. So in the call to action, you need to tell your audience to take action. And that action needs to be a specific, realistic action. For example, don't just tell your audience, who are all high schoolers, become a firefighter now. I don't think that legally minors can become firefighters in South Korea. I'm not sure of the exact law, but I'm pretty sure that that's not legally possible. So if you say something like, contact your neighborhood fire station and ask how you can become a firefighter. This is a much more realistic action that high school students can take. Another example of a bad call to action is for the criminal defense attorney. Don't just say, sign up for law school. So you don't just sign up for law school. You have to get admitted into law school. So it would be better to say something like, email a good law university in your area to find out how to get into law school. So that is something that your audience, which consists of day 1 high school students, might be able to actually do. We're getting to the end, guys. Just hold on. The memorable close is the last part of MMS I will explain to you. So the memorable close is a part that my students always seem to struggle with. So I'm going to give you some very specific techniques about how to be memorable in your close. Just end with a quote. So, for example, if I have the topic firefighters, firefighters save more than homes. They save hearts, memories, and dreams. I found this quote online, so I have to cite it. You can also end with a command. Firefighters risk their lives to save ours. So the next time you hear the fire trucks go by, give a salute to the men and women rushing off to save lives. So you're telling the audience to do something. You're telling them to do an action, right? So these are the easier memorable closes. If you want to challenge yourself, there's also some memorable closes that use language in a different way. So these are some more advanced ideas about how to make a good memorable close. These do not earn you more points. I will not give you more points because you attempted these. However, a lot of students like to try these because they play with language and have some interesting imagery. Make a contrasting statement, such as, when it comes to fighting hot fires, we can always count on our firefighters to stay cool. So the contrasting image is the hot fire and the cool firefighter, right? Make a rhyme. Firefighters are in the fight to turn back flames and make things right. So I made that up out of the blue. It's not a quote that someone else has said, so I don't have to cite it. I just made it up. But it does rhyme. So what rhymes? Fight and right. So it ends things in a very neat way. Use figurative language. Firefighters put out fires so that our dreams of a safe future can always burn bright. So the figurative language here is that the dreams are burning bright. And burning is something that is related to firefighters, right? Dreams don't actually burn like a literal fire, but by burning bright, that means that you're keeping these dreams alive, and this is a type of figurative language. So all of the memorable closes I showed you on the previous slide and this slide. The reason why they're all memorable is because they only really apply to firefighters. Imagine if you put something like bakers. Bakers put out fires so that our dreams of a safe future can always burn bright. That doesn't make any sense. What I'm looking for is for you to use one of the techniques I have shown in these two slides, but I want you to use it in a way that can really only apply to your topic or to your field. All right, so congratulations. You've made it to the end of the MMS explanation video. I hope you're still alive. I hope that your hand has not cramped from writing so many notes. Remember that you will have this PPT available to you after school starts. I will upload it onto my website so that you can download it. But if you ever need to review it, I heard that the school will keep the video online for a little bit after you come back from the coronavirus break. So you can watch the video over and over again if you love the sound of my voice and really need more detailed instructions or for me to repeat myself because I wasn't clear in a certain part of the video. But it's over, except for one more slide. So once we actually finally meet in class, you're going to get a lot of paper from me. I'm going to make it rain paper on you. However, that's actually good because my students tend to find all the papers I give them very useful. So one of the first things that you will receive and we will decide on day one is your topic. You can't start without a topic, right? So we need to determine your topic right away. Next, I will give you a handout about how to research and do MLA citations. I will also give you one of the most useful handouts that my students said really helped them each year. And it is the MMS sample speech that I have done. So it is an entire MMS speech based on a topic that only I have. So I will also perform this in class, probably not in the first week, probably in one of the weeks after. I will also introduce you to the thing that we have in place of the journal this semester, which is the speech packet. So again, 10 worksheets might sound like a lot, but the moment you see these worksheets, I guarantee you, you're going to be extremely relieved because these worksheets will really help you understand how I do my grading. I will also give you a handout about how to write transitions. And I will give you a presentation, delivery, and memorization tips handout. There are certain techniques that you can definitely use to help you with your memorization and to give you more confidence in your delivery. So this is the last slide for real now. Thank you all for listening, and I really look forward to seeing you in class. Bye.